I guess I just got annoyed that they got rid of the black and blue suit without really doing much with it.
You do not mess with my family!
They toned him down quite a bit.
I was trying to save mine!
You know, there's so much stuff in the comics that they just didn't put on the screen for some reason.
Stop!
What's going on, everyone? We're back with another YouTube video. So a few days ago, or I think about a week ago, I made a video exposing Lil Bro for being bad faith, blatantly lying about, or just not understanding certain plot points for it. Apparently, he made a response, and his approach was to call me bad faith and accuse me of lying about him in return. I kind of predicted he was going to go this route because there was no way in hell he would have been able to justify the batshit points he made otherwise. But, you know, this is a classic example of something liars do when they get exposed. It's essentially the whole, like, I know you are, but what am I strategy, where the person getting exposed just deflects the blame or deflects the accusation back onto the accuser and tries to center themselves as the one being lied upon. He uses examples that you guys will even notice in this video. The instances where he tries to accuse me of quote-unquote being bad faith to him don't even make any sense. This combined with a lot of his response just mostly being him backtracking, oversimplifying and misinterpreting what I'm saying, and then he also just lies about the show even more, and then he also brings up new points about the comics, which me doing extra research this time turns out that he's also wrong about. So with that being said, let's just get into it.
Made a response to my Invincible video that I wanted to go through and respond to. Also, don't go spamming his video in the comments. He clearly doesn't care about that sort of stuff, but I do. I don't want people harassing him. I'm not going to include his full video in this, I'm just going to pick the most relevant part, so if you want to check out his complete unedited video, go ahead. But don't go filling his comment section with shit like his merry band of fuckwits did with mine.
Okay, so first things first, the way you're trying to like represent me here as someone who doesn't care about people's channels getting harassed, if you do think that, you clearly don't know anything about me, because in most of my response videos I literally tell people as a precaution not to go harass the person I'm responding to. With that being said, obviously we're just responding to these videos. Don't go and harass the guy. If you have anything to say about his video, just say it in mine and let's get into it. And even then, in the video I made, I never once incited or galvanized my audience to go harass you. Secondly, let's not sit here and act like the hate from your video solely came from me reacting to you. In fact, Loomar, taking a look at your comment section, a lot of people were shitting on your takes and correcting your points before I made my video on you, my friend, because some of your takes weren't the best and did need correcting, as you yourself admit later on in this video. Guys, it was one filler episode. Seriously, it was one filler episode, and now apparently Invincible isn't working anymore.
I talk about this one episode and what it means for the show for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, with most of my points being about various parts of the show throughout its entire history, almost like this episode was just a tipping point that made me want to air out my problems that I have with this show. So yeah, one filler episode and Invincible isn't working anymore if you're trying to immediately put some bad faith into the video to try and make yourself seem more credible.
No, this was not bad faith related at all. That was simply me making a commentary on the fact that after a pretty solid 3 episode starts of the season, we got an episode that people didn't like very much, and all of a sudden a lot of people online who didn't like Invincible to begin with came out and started using that episode to act like the show was never good and stuff like that. And then yeah, to be honest, I did find it hella convenient that you released this video full of outdated critiques and even points that you yourself you admit you were being bad faith on and lying about around a time where you thought making a video lying about the show was going to get you views. I was simply making a commentary on what I saw, and the people in your comment section were making a commentary on what they saw. That's all there is to it. As you can see, we have a video here from someone who doesn't really like Invincible too much, which is a shame because the latest episode was fire.
As I stated last time, which you left out of your video for some reason, almost like you cut out stuff that doesn't really help back your own arguments, there's still some good main story beat, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who are gonna love the Cold War stuff they've got going on for the end of this season and season 5. I most likely will enjoy it as well. I just know there's gonna be a bunch of other things added into it or changed that people will have a problem with.
Already being dishonest here, are we? First off, I did not specifically cut out parts of the video where you talk about aspects that you liked about the show. I am perfectly aware there are aspects about the show that you like. In fact, the various parts where you talk about the changes you like, including the parts they made to Debbie being good and the changes to Shrinking Ray being good in your opinion, I kept in my response video. And you watched the vid so you would know this, and yet here you are still lying on me. The parts where you talk about the Viltrumite War stuff and how it might be enjoyable, that was not in the response, but only because you don't say anything about any of that until like the end of your video. I'll put the timestamp on the screen where he says this, but this was around the time where you were just reiterating your main points and giving your closing thoughts. You didn't say any of this positive shtick at the beginning or throughout your video, with the exception of the couple that, like I said, I kept in. The reality is just I ended it where I ended it because there was just nothing for me to respond to. There was nothing I disagreed with that already wasn't addressed during my response. That's how most of my response videos are. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's how most response videos operate. I usually just try to tackle the most relevant points. If we get near the end and we get to a point where the points are just being reiterated or nothing is said that I really disagree with, I just end the video, which you even do in this video. You say, and I quote, I'm not going to include his full video in this. I'm just going to include the most relevant parts. So, I don't know, guys. Apparently, it's fine when he does it, but it's bad faith when I do it. How the hell does that make any sense? What's funny is, though, he's saying this, but he absolutely cuts out relevant parts of my response, which we'll get to later.
In Season 2, 3 characters get killed off in a single episode, then it turns out that no, actually, each and every one of them are fine. Nothing to worry about. With Kate, I don't particularly mind. She has another body somewhere else, whatever. But Ray gets every single one of her bones crushed and splintered inside of her body, and Rex has his hand ripped off and takes a point-blank headshot with lots of blood loss throughout, and then they're both just fine with no real lasting consequences.
Okay, no offense, but if you think there were no lasting consequences after that whole thing, then you were not paying attention. Ray getting her bones crushed literally made her retire from being a superhero altogether.
I was very obviously talking about the physical consequences of pretending to kill her off. There's other ways to make her retire besides faking out her death, breaking every bone in her body, and then just making her have no long-term health conditions. They could have just had her be traumatized by seeing what happened to Rex and Kate and not want to be a hero anymore. They didn't need a third fake-out death in this episode.
I mean, there's more than one way to tell a story, my guy. I don't think it would have hit as hard as she simply chose to retire simply from watching what happens to Rex and the others, because given that she is a superhero in this universe, she's likely to have already seen people die in action before. It's one thing watching it happen, it's completely different when you are the one on the brink of death, which to someone like Ray, that would be a visceral, traumatizing experience compared to just watching it happen to someone else. So it's way more interesting when Ray, even though she has the capability to keep fighting crime, chooses not to, as opposed to being forced into not fighting crime anymore by terminal physical conditions. You clearly have a different perspective and you don't really like the way they went about it, which is fine, but ultimately that's subjective. That does not mean the whole show or the whole direction they took was bad. And when it comes to her surviving those bone crushing injuries without lasting consequences, I would say that's kind of always been a thing in this show, and mainly it boils down to the medical technology in the Invincible world being highly advanced. We saw this when the GDA and Cecil fixed Debbie's broken hand after Angstrom split it open in Season 2, and it was patched in a relatively short amount of time. Donald gets brought back to life I don't know how many fucking times with just his brain intact. Hell, how do you think the Guardians were able to operate after what they went through with Battle Beast in Season 1? Remember, a lot of them had their bones broken as well. So seeing all of this, Ray having a recovery after what she went through really should not be out of the realm of possibility. And Rex nearly dying was the jumpstart to him trying to become a better person.
Again, what physical consequences happened? What long-term impact does the bullet to the head deal him? Nothing. What impact does losing his hand deal him? Nothing. He has a new one by the end of the season. Again, they could have just traumatized him with Kate's death and it would have had the same effect.
Again, this does not take into account the fact that you are trying to apply real-world logic to a universe where cybernetics, advanced medical tech, aliens, and superheroes with enhanced durability exist. Like Loomar. You are a Star Wars fan. You're aware that Empire Strikes Back is widely hailed as one of the best Star Wars movies. You know, the same movie where Vader slices Luke's arm off and he gets a new one 10 minutes later. That's not even the only time that happens. Characters in those movies get their limbs chopped off and replaced with cybernetic ones all the time. Most of the time in the same fucking movie, and no one questions it. You want to know why no one questions it? Because it's in a universe where advanced tech and medicine were already established to have existed. Like, for fuck's sake, Conquest, one of the characters we're going to talk about in this video, gets his arm chopped off and gets a new one. And when he breaks that arm during that fight with Mark, he escapes, goes to Viltrum, and comes back with a new one. Like, almost as if they have technology that allows for that to happen. If this was a more grounded show where advanced medical tech didn't exist and the world was relatively normal, then I would see where you are coming from. But Invincible is not one of those shows. It has never been one of those shows, so the standard that you are trying to project onto it doesn't make any sense. Not to mention, Rex losing his hand does have somewhat of a physical consequence. Although he does get a new one, he's not able to use it as freely. Like when he tries to use his middle finger against Cecil, and he can't, because of a function that Cecil put in. Hey, listen, you said you wanted a physical consequence. Technically it counts, because if Rex hadn't lost his hand, he would have had to deal with that. So there you go. Rex losing his hand did have a physical consequence. By the way, I'm not really sure what the problem is with them surviving extreme shit.
I never said there was necessarily a problem with people surviving extreme threat.
Yes, you were. You just spent a whole minute making a big deal out of the hero surviving extreme injuries with no physical lasting consequences. These were your words, not mine. You are literally just backtracking now.
I said it was tedious that they baited 3 character deaths and then they're all still alive and walking around.
Okay, so you feel like it's tedious. I don't. We can just agree to disagree on that. But I was explicitly responding to you saying that it was nonsensical that they survived and that they were fine with no real lasting consequences, which is objectively false. Rex especially, because his body was actually reinforced and cybernetically modified by the government, so it honestly makes sense he would survive stuff like that.
As stated in the image you show in your own video, he got some modifications to his forearms and he got some sort of machinery implanted in his nervous system. There's nothing explicitly mentioned about having cybernetic reinforcements going across his whole body.
Well, Loomar, if you actually use that brain of yours, no pun intended, we just established the image says he has mechanical implants grafted into his forearms and into his nervous system. And if you know anything about the nervous system, assuming you learned basic anatomy in middle school, you know that the nervous system is comprised of multiple parts spread throughout your whole body. The central nervous system being located in the brain, which Rex's was modified, and the peripheral nervous system, which consists of the skin and nerves, limbs, and the muscle tissue throughout his body, which were also modified. In fact, it was chemically altered to be more durable, as we saw in his comic book origin where it explicitly says so, which we know is canon because he brings up his government origins when he's talking to Ray in season 3. So given all of these enhancements, it would make sense that Rex would have some sort of limited protection from having long-lasting brain damage, because his brain is not like a normal human's. I also noticed that you completely ignored the bottom part of the image where it's explicitly explained that the skeletal structure of his body was modified with organic materials, including metal in his skull, which we know is true because he literally had to detonate his skeleton against the Invincible clone. So, Loomar, you are wrong. His whole body was indeed completely modified. Now, this does not make him indestructible, but it does allow him to survive and or recover much faster from injuries that would kill normal humans.
He certainly doesn't have it in his head, considering he gets shot in it. And as shown in the show, enhancements are irrelevant in this situation because he did lose his hand and he did get shot point blank in the head and he suffered severe blood loss from both of them. These are catastrophic injuries that, again, you think would have a big impact, but no, they have no physical effect on him. Like I said, he just gets a new hand anyways and he has no problems with it. So it's just a fake out death in an episode that has another 2 of them.
So once again, and this will be the last time I address this point, Rex did have a few problems using it, as I said earlier, and what you're saying does not take into account the fact that they have access to the most advanced medical technology and cybernetics in the world with Cecil and the government, which is precisely why they can get away with surviving and recovering from gruesome injuries like this. Even then, you guys do know it's possible to survive a headshot, right?
I never disputed that. It seems like you want to focus on injuries instead of my main point.
You were literally just making a big deal out of the injuries though. Like, do I need to refresh your memory on the points you just made?
He certainly doesn't have it in his head, considering he gets shot in it. And as shown in the show, enhancements are irrelevant in this situation because he did lose his hand and he did get shot point blank in the head and he suffered severe blood loss from both of them. These are catastrophic injuries that, again, you think would have a big impact.
Like, what the fuck? Yo, let's just keep going. I mean, it is very rare, but even in real life, it does happen. I mean, Invincible isn't even the first media that does this. Isn't that literally how Kill Bill started? Also, that's not even counting the fact that Rex ended up dying later on anyway.
Again, nothing to do with my main point.
How so? Were you not just complaining that they baited character deaths. I just gave you an example of a permanent character death that happened after the moment you're complaining about. How does this not have anything to do with your main point? You're not making any sense.
Eve just gets her internal organs punched out, and then she just becomes Super Saiyan with no build-up whatsoever.
Wait, no, there literally was setup for that. I mean, did you watch the Adam Eve special that happened before season 2 took place, showing the full potential of her powers, literally setting all this up to happen? You did watch that, right? Right?
Yeah, it shows that she's a lot more powerful than she actually thinks, and that she can heal herself and manipulate organic matter as well. At no point does it say she's so powerful she can raise herself from the dead and unleash nuclear blasts on people.
Genius. Eve's entire body is made up of organic matter. Her limiters going off gives her influence over her body that's made up of organic matter, which allows her to heal herself and bring herself back from the dead. I honestly didn't think I needed to explain this. Like, I thought everyone knew that human bodies were made up of organic matter, but yeah, again, chat, we gotta be nice. Everyone didn't go to school. So, but, you know, let's just move on.
As I mentioned in my video, this is kind of another issue that's brought over from the comics. Atom Eve is a very difficult character to write for, and they had the same problems there, but they could have adapted it better for the show, maybe put more limitations on or explain her powers better.
Wow, I actually agree with you on this. First bit of decent constructive criticism you've given all video. Now, if your whole video was like this, instead of lying and making a big deal about stuff that was fixed years ago, we would be doing this right now.
Also, this might just be me, but if you're going to introduce something this powerful into the storyline, especially when it leads to the conclusion of one of the biggest fight scenes in the show, maybe you should have some sort of refresher scene for that, not just rely on a 30-second scene that got released like 2 years ago that has not been relevant since.
A 30-second scene that's part of an important special episode of this character's origin story that you can go back and watch at literally any time. Don't backtrack now. Your main complaint was that it came out of nowhere and that it wasn't set up. Now that we've established that you were wrong and that it was in fact set up, now you're shifting the argument to, well, they should have refreshed me on it.
Come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
How convenient that this Eve can do this, but the Eve that got her fucking neck snapped is just going to be a vegetable from now on.
This is a completely different version of Eve you're talking about from a whole nother dimension, which we don't even know the capabilities of.
She's called Atom Eve and she's capable of reshaping matter using her mind, as we see in this fight scene. I think it's made pretty clear that this is just the same Eve in a different universe. Unless something is said to be different, I don't know why the assumption is that everything else must be different. Do I also need to question the powers and origins of Mark and Nolan? Or are we just going to assume that they've got a very similar history in the main timeline, just with some small differences that made Mark join Nolan?
Okay, so here I will take some partial responsibility here for not wording my rebuttal as well as I could, but I still feel like Loomar kind of missed the point of what I was saying. I know they have similar abilities, but like as you just said and the point I was making in my video, there are some small differences that make their origin stories different from our versions. So with that being said, when it comes to this version, obviously yes, she does have the same basic power set. I was more so referring to the potential of Eve's powers may not be the exact same as the Eve in our dimension. Again, I will say that is on me because my wording was just kind of off with that one. So let's just say me being good faith, I were to concede this and give your argument the benefit of the doubt, and we would just assume that our Eve and the alternate Eve have the exact same base abilities, power level, and potential. Even then, you comparing these instances is still nonsensical solely because of the different circumstances of the fight. This version of Eve was near death. Young Eve may as well have been near death because, I mean, just look at her, she's severely battle damaged, and she experienced the death of someone close to her, while this Eve was just simply paralyzed during battle. She's not really on the brink of death, nor is there really any significant mental damage done to her from like a close death or something like that. So yeah, even if I concede the point that assumes alternate Eve has the exact same rule set and capabilities as our Eve, it's still a false equivalency in trying to bring up this instance because it's just simply not the same. The circumstances here just weren't enough to break her limiter. It really is just that simple. If it's possible that some Invincibles throughout the multiverse are stronger or weaker than ours, as we saw in the Invincible War,
most of the Invincibles are weaker and they lose because they've never trained as hard or had to fight strong opponents, and the world has been prepared to fight them after what Nolan did to them. them. The universes they come from aren't fundamentally different. It's made very clear these are the same Mark as in season 1, just they had certain circumstances that made them join Nolan. And therefore, besides the Guardians and Cecil, they've most likely just been killing humans that aren't a challenge to them.
I mean, yeah, I already know this. Like I said, I feel like you kind of missed the point of what I was saying. Yes, they get stronger as they train. In fact, that still proves the point I was making the whole time, that across the different Marks, the power levels and potential vary. And like you just said, the circumstances with the Marks were different, albeit in minor ways, so I was just simply saying the circumstances with Eve may have been different as well. With that being said, again, I do feel like I could have worded my points a little bit better here, but yeah, now that we've addressed this part of the argument, we can move on.
You want to shock me and show me a change of pace? Well, how about when you have the strongest soup on the planet get attacked by a guy he could easily defeat?
Oh yes, the guy whose powers and tech were specifically designed to make him stronger the harder Mark hits him, which is why Mark explicitly says he's not gonna try and hurt him.
I know how your powers work. I'm not gonna fight you.
Or do you just not pay attention to the clips that you put on screen?
How good of you to cut the scene right before Invincible then proceeds to fight him. I guess with the power of editing you can glaze anything.
I'm sorry. I'm getting these people out of here.
What?
Okay, Loomar is obviously intentionally playing dumb here. You and I both know this is a fight scene. I never once made the argument that Mark doesn't fight Powerplex at all. I was operating under the premise that we were both aware that we are dissecting a fight scene between two people. If you re-listen to what I said, the specific clip I played was a response to you complaining about why Invincible doesn't just easily defeat him, not that they didn't fight. My rebuttal to you saying why doesn't Invincible just easily defeat him was that Invincible was not actively trying to hurt him, which is why he says, I know how your powers are, I'm not gonna fight you. I never made the argument that they never fought or that he doesn't end up fighting him. The clip is called Invincible versus Powerplex. We know they are fighting each other, genius. The point I was making was that Mark was trying to avoid hurting him during the fight and that he spends most of it trying to reason with him because that's consistent with his character, which is why the story doesn't have Invincible easily defeat him. If we really want to be technical with it, since you want to play dumb, I'm pretty sure the clip you just played is the only time Mark even hits him, and right after that he goes to help the family.
Out of here. Hey there. I'll help you in a second. You okay? Did he hurt you? What the hell?
And 2, like I said, he also avoids trying to harm him because he risks Powerplex's abilities getting stronger, which is exactly what happens after Mark punches him into the wall.
You're a monster!
For the pain you've caused, you've done!
And guess what? After this, Mark is still not trying to hurt him, which was the point I was making the entire time. He yells at him to stop and then literally just goes up to him and absorbs his energy. I didn't say they didn't fight at all. I was saying that Mark was obviously holding back due to the nature of Powerplex's powers and the fact that from his perspective, there were people there who were tied up and couldn't move.
Instead of having a big dramatic death battle that shows a mother and her child get disintegrated on screen for a really dumbass reason.
What about them dying the way they did was dumb? The whole point was that them trying to get revenge the way they did was stupid and negligent, and that's why they got killed. But, you know, he doesn't really elaborate on this, so just kind of complaining for the sake of complaining.
Yeah, I mean, my point is just complaining for the sake of complaining. If you ignore the opening part of this section where I talk about how tedious the shock value is all the time.
That's the thing, you don't really talk about it though in this part of the video specifically. You just say that the mother and son die for a dumbass reason. What's the dumbass reason? What makes it shock value, and most of all, what makes it bad shock value given what I just explained when it comes to the point of Powerplex's story? You don't really talk about or elaborate on any of this. You just say, yeah, if you're gonna ignore the opening to this section where I talk about the tedious shock value, you don't really talk about it. You give a suggestion on how to quote unquote improve Powerplex's storyline, but you never explain what exactly the problem with his storyline is, and more importantly, the dumbass reason for the way the mother went out.
Why don't you just have Invincible end the fight instantly, which he should be able to do, and then you can just try and have him, like, emphasize with why Powerplex feels the way he does, showing that not all fights between a hero and a villain have to end in violence.
Well, Mark did try to end the fight instantly, and it didn't work because Powerplex was too consumed with vengeance. That was literally the whole point of his character story. Removing that would remove the tragedy aspect of Powerplex's character, which is why his story is so compelling to begin with.
Yeah, he does try and talk him down, but as seen in the clip you left out, he does fight him eventually. He gives up on talking and just decides to fight him, an opponent that can't really do a lot to him.
Once again, either you are playing dumb or you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I did not say they never fought. In the clip just now, I literally say in response to your point that Mark tried to end the fight instantly and it did not work. If you can read above a 5th grade level, this statement implies that I know this is a fight between two people. Once again, the point I was actually making was that Mark was not trying to harm Powerplex, as that was not the priority. In response to you saying, why doesn't Mark just easily defeat him? And then saying Powerplex can't do a lot to him when we literally saw him do this.
Come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
I mean, in isolation, I do think this is a great part of Invincible, and as you say, the themes and messaging behind it is good. But this isn't shocking anymore. It's not like we haven't seen families get slaughtered on screen. This is just par for the course because Invincible relies too much on shock value, my original point, which you seem very eager to steer clear from so you can focus on other things I haven't even bothered to make as my point.
I'm not steering clear from shit. In fact, now that you've actually made it clear what you see as shock value, which is just people dying and getting slaughtered, it's important to note that you do know not every death is inherently created for shock value. Now, there are cases that you're talking about in this show, like during the Viltrumite fights where families are getting their arms torn off and stuff like that. Here, I wouldn't say Powerplex's family deaths count simply as a tool for shock value. Powerplex's family dying served as an important character moment, highlighting the consequences of his negligence, as I stated earlier. This is something pretty common I see with a lot of people. They just look at any death that happens and go, oh, that's shock value. Now, don't get me wrong, there is shock value in this show, 100%. But Powerplex's family dying just isn't really an example of this because it had a narrative and story purpose behind it that you missed.
In the comics, Ray is just some comic relief character and then he gets killed off early on and no one really cares that much. While in the show she survives, although in a really stupid way that I wish they did differently.
Oh yes, this was when you said the characters were fine with no lasting consequences, right?
And this allows her and Rex's character to be expanded upon and grow, making his death even more tragic.
And then you go and explain exactly what the fight's implications were and how they had lasting consequences. You can't make this shit up.
You really love looking at those trees, my man. Maybe if you could look at the rest of the forest, that would be great as well.
Well, how about make more concise arguments and don't lie about stuff, my man.
So Mark comes across as very unreasonable for not wanting to work with him for just these two things.
Alright, listen, Loomar, you make a pretty good point. Mark was coming off as unreasonable. You could say somewhat of a hypocrite for lashing out at Darkwing after they saved him. But, hear me out. Given that every other character in this scene was criticizing Mark and telling him to calm down, perhaps maybe that was the entire point of the scene? I know, it's almost like the protagonist can be wrong sometimes. Maybe that's why the writers intentionally had every other character criticize him. Maybe that's why the writers intentionally had Cecil point out his double standards of thinking during their conversation. Maybe Mark was supposed to be viewed as somewhat in the wrong for lashing out like this. It's almost like Mark's not perfect.
No way!
Mind-blowing concept, I know.
The scene told me it's good, so the scene must be good. That's the argument.
What?
That wasn't the argument I made at all and completely oversimplifies what I said, but okay. Dude has absolutely zero media literacy. Like, he just skipped over everything I just said about how he was supposed to come across as flawed in that scene and just said, well, the scene told me it was good, so therefore it's good. Like, and he calls me bad faith.
Like, yeah, the scene wanted Mark to be hypocritical, so it made Mark a hypocrite, regardless of how many brain functions it had to remove from him to make him jump to these conclusions.
They didn't remove brain cells from anyone, lil bro. Even though Mark is coming across as irrational here, he is behaving this way because of his constant stream of distrust with Cecil. He is literally coming off of finding out that Cecil is working with Sinclair, someone who was involved with experimenting on and killing innocent people, including some of the people who were closest to him, as well as the fact that he damn near killed him with a sonic advice during their last disagreement. And now, Darkwing, someone who Invincible had to put down because he was going off the deep end and executing people, now he's working with Cecil. Like, yeah, of course Invincible is gonna flip out when he sees Darkwing and Cecil working together. This reaction is very in character for him. And it's important to note this as well. Acting in character is not equal to acting logical. I've made this point in like a lot of my other videos. People are not gonna make logical choices 100% of the time. If that happened, we wouldn't have interesting stories.
In the comics, because of the corruption from his powers, his own mental health issues, and the guilt of losing his mentor, Darkwing 2 just has a fucking breakdown and he starts killing anyone who he believes is a threat, even people who haven't really broken the law. Invincible isn't against him for killing criminals, he's against him because he ends up murdering innocent people on a whim, and obviously he would be pissed at Cecil for having him on the team.
Oh my fucking god, dude, the comic that you're showing literally shows Invincible telling Darkwing you were killing people who broke the law. Any law. You were killing people because you enjoyed it, which is the exact same thing he was about to do in the scene before Invincible intervened.
Okay, so again, he killed people because he enjoyed it. He justified some of the killings that they were breaking a law, but he was mostly just doing it because he enjoyed killing people, because the voices told him to kill people. He was paranoid, so he killed people. The law really didn't have that much to do with why he was killing.
Well, thanks for reiterating what I had just established 2 seconds ago and telling it back to me. Very helpful counterpoint, thank you.
Perhaps if the show went out of its way to explain that these were criminals, or if these were innocent people, we might have more context into Darkwing's character, and therefore the significance of this scene might play out differently.
No, again, you're missing the point here. Did we not just establish that them breaking the law had nothing to do with him killing people? So given that fact, there doesn't really need to be a clarification on whether the guy was a criminal or not, because whether he was actually a criminal or not didn't really matter. As we just established, the law had really nothing to do with him killing people. And assuming he was a criminal, criminal could mean a variety of different things. It could mean a murderer, but it could also mean a robber, a burglar, or a petty car thief, which most of the time, you know, you're not really justified in killing them unless they are a threat to other people, which this guy clearly was not, just looking at the context clues. He was on a rooftop, beat up, running away, and crying for help. Darkwing, clearly having the upper hand in this situation, has the capability to just take him in, but he decides to try to kill him anyway despite the circumstances not justifying it. So yeah, the point here is not the type of person that the guy is, it's what he was doing and Darkwing's approach to the situation that was wrong.
Darkwing was a fucking maniac in the comics. There was no real rhyme or reason for what he was doing, he just did it. He was hearing voices in his head.
Yeah, he was a maniac in hearing voices in his head in the show too. In fact, they make it a point to show you that he's gone completely crazy.
Okay, bring him in. He's lost it.
You think? You hear them too? Huh? The voices. Oh, man. Hey, you're coming with me, okay?
Which is why this moment and his redemption work so well. It shows that some people just need medication and they can be rehabilitated.
Or it worked well because it showed how even a messed up lunatic like Darkwing can change for the better when you least expect it, even when there's heroes like Invincible who don't believe in him. Like, bro, Invincible fans are not beating the low literacy allegations, man. Loomar, are you aware of the stuff that's coming out of your mouth right now?
You understand that if you don't really know another piece of media that's being referenced, you don't have to make a comment, you can just move on instead of guessing shit.
Now, Loomar, let's not start projecting onto other people because you got exposed.
I don't know, but to me that sounds a lot better than, oh, he doesn't have the same moral values as me, so therefore he's bad.
Again, the whole show wasn't saying that. That was coming from Mark's perspective, which is clearly meant to be flawed here. Do you just not understand how character writing works?
Character writing usually tends to be consistent, not just making your character become educationally subnormal to make drama happen. Hey, look, a character was made to be an idiot so a lot of drama and shock value happened. Almost like that's one of my critiques of the show.
Okay, this was not purely for shock value, and it is consistent with Mark's experiences as a character. As I said earlier, remember, someone acting in character writing-wise is not equivalent to them acting logical 100% of the time. Mark lashing out is consistent here because it is coherent with what he experienced beforehand. All of Mark's decisions are not going to be 100% logical because how humanity acts in general isn't 100% logical. People are selfish, people get angry, people get jealous, people get prideful or vengeful. All of this gets in the way of making logical choices most of the time because, spoiler alert, emotions don't follow logic.
To a social justice warrior who knew he was a hero from the get-go but got annoyed that he would rather save lives than spend time with her. I mean, come on man, what the fuck were you guys thinking?
Okay, have any of you guys seen Amber in this season? Like, at all? Hasn't she been gone pretty much the entire season and barely showed up last season? This video is called Invincible Just Doesn't Work Anymore. Why are we talking about something that 1, happened 3 seasons ago, and 2, isn't even relevant to the events happening in the show right now?
Hey, he got me guys. From now on, you cannot talk about anything that happened in any other seasons of the show to demonstrate your points, or to give examples on something that continues to happen even in the latest season. You can only talk about season 4, and then after that finishes, you're only allowed to talk about season 5. The media guru has laid down his laws.
That's not what I said. You are once again strawmanning my argument and oversimplifying what was being said. Your point here about Amber makes no sense because, as I said, Amber has not been continuously relevant in the show since like season 2, after which the issue you were sitting here bitching about was already fixed. No one's saying you can't acknowledge it happened. The actual problem that you have yet to refute is that you're acting as if this is a current problem with the show when it's not. I also like how he just randomly brings up that she's a social justice warrior, like as if that helps at all with elaborating on why her character sucks.
Yeah, I don't bring up why social justice warriors are bad and annoying. You'll also never hear me explain why headbutting cacti and smearing shit on the walls is bad either, because it's pretty obvious why it's bad.
A reason that you have yet to give, my dude. You do realize being a social justice advocate is not inherently a bad thing. It's only inherently bad if it's performative, which you have no evidence of, and once again, it has nothing to do with the actual reason people were upset with her character. If it's so obvious that Amber being a social justice advocate ruins her character, then it should be so easy for you to tell me why, but you don't. Therefore, you have absolutely no point here whatsoever. I mean, I'm not gonna defend her writing there, but it's just funny how Amber just lives in y'all heads so rent-free 3 seasons later. It's actually wild.
He got me again, guys. Remember, it was 3 seasons ago, so no one is allowed to talk about it or bring it up because he said so.
Again, that's not what was actually being said, but you know, given you can't make any concise arguments here, it's safe to say that you don't really have any more substance to say, so we're just gonna move on from this.
Calling attention to a bad trope that everyone hates and then you continue to use it anyways doesn't make it a quirky, self-referential piece of comedy.
Actually, it does. Literally by definition.
This scene plays it for comedy, yes. In literally every other part of the episode, it's played completely straight and it's just something that happens with their armor. Mark isn't constantly getting annoyed throughout the episode about it. There's never a scene where someone talks during combat and then that person gets hit in the head. It's just something that keeps happening and everyone just accepts it as normal. This one scene doesn't make the entire episode a self-referential comedy.
I was not talking about the whole episode. I was talking about the specific scene that you were talking about where they called attention to and made fun of it. Wow, you can be part of a trope and use a little bit of time in your media to make fun of that trope. That in and of itself is a self-referential joke, which was put on the screen. Nowhere did I say that the entire episode was making fun of it. Why would you put a random description on the screen saying one joke doesn't make the entire episode comedy? I didn't say that it did. We were both clearly talking about that specific section of the episode. Strawman much?
You can't show me this guy being so strong he manages to defeat the Viltrumites all the other Viltrumites fear, and then have him get his ass kicked by a couple of ping pong balls shortly afterwards. That's fucking stupid.
Okay, so there's a lot to break down here. First of all, Invincible was not holding back at any point during his fight with Conquest. Conquest was literally just that strong. It got to a point where Mark tried to stop the fight because Conquest's strength was so overwhelming, which is why it's confusing when you're trying to make it sound like Mark beat the strongest Viltrumite, quote unquote, all by himself when he definitely did not.
This is fair. Oliver and Eve do help to distract him a bit and lay on a bit of hurt, especially later on when Eve kind of regenerates or whatever. But Mark does do the brunt of the work and ultimately he's the one who manages to kill him. He makes him bleed and destroys his hand and caves his skull in. I guess I should have focused more on how long it took Conquest to beat him down rather than Mark winning, considering that Conquest talks about how he hasn't been challenged in a fight for a very long time. So yeah, that was my bad. I should have focused on the endurance of the fight, not necessarily about how Mark was the one who won it.
I get that you're admitting that you messed up, kudos, but then you try to downplay it by saying Eve distracted him a bit while Mark did most of the work. I'm sorry, but no. It was clearly shown throughout the fight that Conquest pretty much could have ended the fight whenever he wanted prior to Eve showing up. Mark was getting absolutely thrashed before Eve used her beam. Trying to mitigate Eve to just a distraction, again, I don't really like how you try to minimize how much impact she actually had in the fight. Mark as well, he did break his hand, like they both had significant parts to play in the fight. But I guess good on you for, at least admitting you were somewhat in the wrong here. Something I actually also want to address here, which I didn't get to address the first time I came across this video, was you saying that it was nonsensical that Mark struggled against the flaxing machines. It's actually worth noting that those flaxing ping pong balls were specifically designed to oppose Omni-Man, and that there's two of them, it makes sense Mark would struggle. And even then, he still had the upper hand, so you're also wrong there. And he sure as hell was not holding back against Dinosaurus. You had to have been watching a completely different fight if you think that was the case.
It takes over. It takes over.
Invincible.
How nice of you to show the part where he stops holding back and not the part immediately before where he obviously was holding back and getting his ass kicked.
I'm not sure why you played a clip of Mark dodging Dinosaurus' attacks and calling that holding back. More specifically, you didn't even play the full clip with the audio attached, which I have no problem doing. I'm gonna do that right now. Let's fix that, shall we? Well, that doesn't sound like holding back to me. Looks like I caught you being dishonest again, little bro. It's not looking good for you right now, my guy. I'm not gonna lie.
In the comics, the reason for the black and blue costume isn't to point out how depressed he is. He's been plenty depressed in the classic suit. The point is that this starts his descent into anger and hate, emotions that bring him severely close to becoming like his father. Throughout this arc, he agrees he sometimes believes his dad was right and that conquering the human race might make things easier for Earth. He stops showing empathy to people like Powerplex and is fully ready to kill him if he becomes a threat again.
If anyone else ever puts my family or anyone I love at risk, I won't hesitate to kill them.
The TV show choosing to add a scene at the end of the season to pretend like he's gone on his comic book arc doesn't mean he's gone on his comic book arc.
Sir, the scene that they put here is from the comic book arc. Like, do I even need to keep responding to this guy?
Also, I mentioned how angry Mark was at Powerplex, an event that happened earlier in both the comic and show, and you play a scene at the end of season 3 that has nothing to do with Powerplex. What's that expression again? Bad faith?
You do know just because you say something is bad faith doesn't make it bad faith, right? In fact, you're actually the one being bad faith here because Mark, quote unquote, getting angry at and vowing to kill Powerplex, that never happened in the comic or the show. In fact, and I can't believe I didn't catch this on my first watch, but he tries to make it seem like Mark threatened to kill Powerplex in the comic book panel, and that's not what happened at all. Powerplex is the one who threatens to kill Mark after he escapes, and Mark just kind of looks at him. The same thing that happened in the TV show. So not only was that another lie that I found in your original video,
Stupid.
but once again, you're calling me bad faith, but you specifically leave out the plot line I included of him killing the second infected human, literally leading to a subplot where him and the people around him contemplated Mark becoming more violent. I noticed you left that very relevant piece of evidence that I put in out of your response video, probably because you didn't have a rebuttal to it. Oh yeah, what's that word that you've been calling me the whole video? Huh. Bad faith.
Also, now that I'm onto this, did you think my entire point here was Mark never gets angry ever? Of course Mark gets angry. Why the hell wouldn't he? The thing I'm pointing out was that Mark gets irrationally angry. He starts to get consumed by anger. Showing him getting angry after what Conquest did has nothing to do with my point, because literally everyone would be angry after what Conquest did.
Well, it's a good thing we literally talked about Mark getting irrationally angry in season 3 earlier on in the video, which led to him going down that character arc. Oh wait, you complained about him acting irrational there too. Loomar, you just contradicted yourself. You can't point out Mark getting irrationally angry in the comics and say that's what made it so good, and then get upset when the show has Mark follow that path and shows Mark getting irrationally angry in the show for the very reasons we just talked about. Do you not see how you just undercut your own point? You literally just complained about him being irrationally angry earlier. The joke is honestly just writing itself at this point, man, because god damn.
In fact, if you flip the colours of the suit, it makes him look like he's wearing red and white, kinda like the Omni-Man suit. Now this isn't actually intentional, as Omni-Man in the comics is actually red and blue, a very light blue. A blue so light everyone thought it was white and that the blue was just the shading and lighting. It's technically blue and this colour flip is just a coincidence. But it could have had actual meaning in the show, where Omni-Man's suit is white and red. It could have been emphasised that he's becoming like the thing he swore he would never become.
I mean, I'm just gonna chalk this up to being a nitpick because I feel like the show has already done a good job hammering home the point of Mark slowly becoming Omni-Man without doing that. Like, this is not something that's absolutely needed, and here you are complaining that the show didn't do it, even though they did show hints of it in the trailer.
Do you really need me to explain how having something in a trailer and having something in the show itself are two completely separate things?
No, you don't. Although you just said it yourself, none of the whole color inversion stuff you're talking about was intentional. It's nothing more than a popular fan theory that was already debunked by the people running the show. That's why I just chalked it up to being a nitpick. Your complaint here is something they could have done, but it wasn't absolutely necessary, given it wasn't even something they were trying to do to begin with. What you're saying here, once again, really just comes back to the whole they could have done what I wanted them to do, which is, once again, not very good critique.
Instead, pretty much all of the characterization for Mark in this arc has been completely removed or changed to the point it doesn't have the same impact.
Not really. Most of it's still pretty much the same.
Thank you for completely proving me wrong using all the examples in the show. Oh wait, you're not gonna do that. You're just gonna say they're the same. So if someone making a statement and then providing multiple examples to back that statement up is yapping, then what do you call a small statement that has no substance or examples? Because whatever the fuck you would call that, that's what your statement was just now.
We talked about those examples multiple times throughout the video, my guy. Mark getting irrationally angry at Darkwing, which you complained about. Mark going all in on dinosaurs from the start, which you lied about. Mark vowing to kill anyone who was a threat to him or his family, which you also complained about. And Mark actually following through on that and killing the Sequid-controlled human, which you just cut out entirely and didn't address at all. I didn't even bring up the examples of the whole Mark versus Cecil conflict when he flew headfirst into the agency causing humongous damage because he thought the drone at his house was theirs, or Mark getting angry, kneeling, killing Cecil twice, Invincible nearly pummeling Titan to death, not knowing the full context of the situation during the second Dragon Showdown. But again, I guaranteed you would have found something to complain about with those as well.
Even when he goes back to his classic colours, in the comics he doesn't take back the fingerless gloves, giving himself full gloves that resemble the ones Nolan wore, showing that despite his desire to be better and less grounded in anger, he's still got that dark side inside himself. In the show he's just got his fingerless gloves again. He's just back to his season 1 characterization.
What?
Yeah, I guess so. Mark's entire characterization about him not holding back and all that just gets completely thrown out the window because they didn't give him a new pair of gloves. Well, unfortunately, the latest episode proved you wrong because Mark fucking choked Conquest to death, so...
Yeah, Mark's characterization I was a bit harsh about, and I guess I should have redone this section considering I knew Conquest's death was coming in the next few episodes. I guess I just got annoyed that they got rid of the black and blue suit without really doing much with it.
You do not mess with my family!
They toned him down quite a bit.
I was trying to save mine!
There's so much stuff in the comics that they just didn't put on the screen for some reason.
Stop!
But yeah, this was a bad take, I'll admit to that. I should have tried to rehash it a bit to try and make it a bit more streamlined, a bit more concise so I get my point across.
Okay, fair enough. That's good on you. Minor interjection, but you also should have redone this section due to the fact that even in the comics, the whole rant you go on when it comes to the gloves and how it's supposed to be symbolic to his character or whatever, that's not true either, because he actually gets the fingerless gloves back like not even less than 10 issues later during the whole Thragg arc. So nothing about his gloves were at all related to the story whatsoever. It was just aesthetic. That was literally it. But other than that, yeah, we'll let him finish. This video practically aged like milk in less than a day.
The stuff I said about Mark, Yeah, that wasn't great. Again, I should have known considering the comic arc they're on, but the rest of my criticisms? Conquest chooses to rip Mark's guts out but not grab his heart and kill him, because seeing someone's guts get ripped out is more shocking. Shock value, you might say.
I honestly think this could just be explained by the fact that Conquest's vision and strength is not really fully there here, as he was literally losing consciousness at that time. Due to this, he's really just trying to get Mark off of him at this point, and like I said, he can't see all the way, so he just planted his hand into Mark's body in front of him as hard as he could. He didn't really care where, as long as he could make it hurt, and hopefully hurt hard enough for Mark to succumb, which he obviously did not. So there's that.
Or Tech Jacket getting completely changed to the point where I question why they even got them in the first place. They take them in the comic because Tech Jacket was so powerful he killed 2 of the alternative Invincibles all by himself. But here, even when she's teaming up with Alan, she's pretty useless. Again, almost like they made a bad change, a change they did not need to do at all, just to add some more drama to the show and keep people interested on the shock value.
Actually, Loomar, you are wrong here. Tech Jacket not being that much of a help there was actually carried over from the comics. It wasn't a change the show made at all. In the comics, Tech Jacket didn't really serve a significant purpose in the Viltrumite War either, other than comic relief and occasional support from time to time. Whenever he tries to take on a Viltrumite on his own in the war, most of his attacks don't really do anything to them. The only reason he won against the 2 Viltrumites was because he overloaded the power core in his suit to self-destruct, which obviously he was able to regenerate from, but it nearly killed him in the process. Other than that, he does virtually no damage to any of the Viltrumites during the Viltrumite War. In fact, he gets continuously bailed out by Alan and Thaddeus countless times, same thing we saw in the show. So, Loomar, you just lied again. What was that you tried to say to me earlier about how if we weren't familiar with the source material, we could just not comment on it instead of guessing shit? Might be time for you to take your own advice.
Someone cooked here.
Anyways, this is pretty much the end of his main response. He doesn't really make any relevant arguments past this point of the video, so we're just gonna end it here. I just find it so funny how this guy tries to accuse me of being bad faith. Again, I knew he was gonna go down this route. It's a pretty pathetic sight to see, to be honest, but honestly, I'm just glad it's over now. Anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for the video. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys like what you see, be sure to like the video, share, comment on the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. Loomar, lil bro, I suggest you just pack it up. I caught you lying again. It's done. We're done, bro. To the rest of you who got to watch this drama unfold, thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, I'm out. I'm about to go watch the new season of The Boys, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.